When it comes to council tax debt collection, Martin Lewis has led the charge on fighting for fairness when someone falls behind with their council tax payments.
Still can't.
Last month, he challenged Cabinet Minister Pat McFadden on the issue. Here's what he had to say.
Within 3 weeks, if you miss one monthly payment, they can ask for you for a year. 2 weeks later, they can take you to court. A week after that, you can have bailiffs at your door. 6 weeks from missing one payment, bailiffs at your door to pay for a whole year's worth of charges plus additional costs on top, which aren't proportionate. I would like to know, do you think that's acceptable, that constituents are treated far worse than customers?
That's obviously very difficult for people, so we're consulting on changing that. So that there can be a reasonable period of time over which people can pay their debt.
Well, chair and founder of Money Saving Expert and the Money and Mental Health Policy Institute, Martin Lewis, our great friend, joins us now. Martin, it was very powerful what you said back then. What has been the repercussions?
So, I mean, there's a backstory to that. About 4 weeks before that meeting, I was in for a one-on-one with the Deputy Prime Minister and the head of the Housing and Local Government Department, Angela Rayner, and I went through a whole list of things where council tax administration is broken. That question that I asked, we'd given them advance notice, and I said this on the show, and that was the first we heard that they were actually going to look at this issue. Now, there are many issues on council tax I've been campaigning on, some of them for as long as 20 years, banging my head against a brick wall. I remember meeting Eric Pickles when he was in charge of the department to talk about all of these. Today, in about an hour, the government will formally launch a consultation to many of these administration issues on council tax. Not the big picture council tax, the small issues. But while they're small, they have massive importance. And at the top of the list is council tax debt collection, which is so rapid and aggressive it would make banks blush. There is no commercial company who can do what the banks do. You heard me say it there. You miss a payment because you can't afford it. 3 weeks later, they say, we don't want the month anymore, we want the year. 3 weeks after that, they can send bailiffs in, and they do, and those bailiffs have got charges on top of the charges. So in this consultation today, I am delighted to say, and I'm very grateful for the government for listening, because this affects over 3 million people. You know, people who go to debt counselling agencies like Citizens Advice, they're dealing with 10,000 council tax debt complaints a week. It has to be prioritised above everything else because it is so aggressive. In the consultation, they're looking at slowing it down so it can't be done as quickly, adding in that councils need to be considerate towards people, capping the extra costs that are added on top where they're disproportionate, and pointing people, just like commercial lenders have to do, towards help with their finances, which actually means they might be able to pay. Because the problem with all this, it's counterproductive. Pushing someone to pay for a year when they can't pay for a month, they don't have the money. The money doesn't come in. All it does is destroy lives. So that is the start of the things that is in this consultation. And I say it's a consultation, I mean that. The government wants feedback from the general public. That isn't out. The link isn't out yet because this doesn't happen until 9:30 today. But I'll be putting it on my social media feeds later, what link you can feed in. If you've had problems and you want to see change, please tell the government as well, because then we might get through this consultation and see something actually coming out of it.
Martin, this is extraordinary. I've experienced this, you know, Martin. When Derek was in his coma in latter half of 2020, somebody came to the door, a bailiff. It was all in Derek's name, and they said, you have to pay your year's council tax plus the fines because we've been chasing you with letters. It was my fault. I hadn't been opening the letters in his name because my head was in another place. And I've experienced that the speed that happened was 6 weeks between him, you know, finding that because he was in a coma, he hadn't paid our council tax, to having bailiffs at the door. And I, of course, am in a much more fortunate position than the sort of people you're talking about. So it is brutal. This is wonderful, yeah, that you've achieved this.
And the fear, and one of the reasons I've done this through my mental health charity, because 2 million people with mental health, it's absolutely devastating. We talked, when we did it on the show a few weeks ago, we had a film from a woman who had got the letter because of delayed post telling her she had to pay on Christmas Day. She got the letter on Christmas Eve. She took out a 40% credit card to pay it off, and that catastrophised her finances. Commercial debt, it would be getting up to a year before they could bring the bailiffs in. Here it's 6 weeks. But I do want to talk about some of the other things that are in this consultation, things I've been asking for years. Now, many people will know I've got my check and challenge, a council tax ban system in England and Scotland, and this consultation is only England. We are still reliant on a 1991 stopgap drive-by valuation, mainly by estate agents, that dictates what band you're in today. So it is no surprise up to 400,000 homes are in the wrong band. And if you are in the wrong band and you can challenge it successfully, don't just do it speculatively. Make sure you go through the whole check and challenge system where your band can be put up. Not only can you get your band dropped, you can get a backdated payout to when you moved in. The problem is they make it very difficult to challenge because you have to do a formal challenge within 6 months of moving into a property. And many people only discover that they're in the wrong band after a year or two. So one of the things in this consultation too is dropping that 6-month rule. What I will be suggesting is everyone is allowed to challenge once they move into a property. That should help keep it administratively low, but give some fairness out there. Another big one, and people will also know about this, in council tax there's a discount currently called the severe mental impairment discount. It is a horrible name. It is generally for those with dementia or Alzheimer's or severe strokes or severe Parkinson's. They're actually talking about changing the name to significant cognitive impairment, which is much better. Under-publicised, very difficult to claim for some people. Council by council, whether it's backdated. Council by council, whether you have to talk to your doctor or the council has to talk to the doctor in England. Again, they've listened to our recommendations, and they're asking, should this be standardised? Should it be universal? Should there be one form? Should it be better publicised? I mean, yes is the obvious answer. So if you have what is currently called a severe mental impairment, and there'll be many people who know about this, and you've had experience of the difficulty of claiming that, please get in touch with them on the consultation on that too. And the other big one they're talking about, this one isn't from me. As you may know, currently by default, you pay council tax for the first 10 months of the tax year, and then you don't pay it for 2 months. Some people like that because it's like they have a payment holiday and they use the money, but it's originally done so councils get money in more quickly. They're talking about shifting the default so that you pay council tax over 12 months, every month over the 12 months by default, but you can still opt for the 10-month period if you want. So there's a lot of changes going on in here. Carers and apprentices, they're looking at upping the threshold, which you still get the council tax discount too. It all sounds, it's really interesting for me. Governments often focus on really big picture issues. You know, let's change the whole structure of society. But it's the little things like the horrible way council tax debt is collected that really do impact people's lives. And we have an opportunity collectively by going into this consultation now to change it. And I would urge people to do so.
Martin?
You're absolutely right, Martin. Is that can be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Thank you very much indeed, Martin. Absolutely brilliant, as always.
Unbelievable stuff. Thank you so much.